Welcome back to part 2 of our 2-part episode. Now let's get this roll pan all prepped up and put it on the truck.
Back from the dead.
So first look at this roll pan. You'll notice it's got a coat of black on it. It's not primer, it's not paint. This is what you would call an E-coat. They only put this on for shipment purposes. It just does the protection to get it to you. It's not for the weather, outside elements, or anything like that. So one of the things you're going to definitely need to do is coat over this. I would recommend an epoxy primer or some sort of sealer just to get a nice base coat before you paint, because this coating won't hold up out in the elements. Next thing you're going to notice is you've got your mounting holes already drilled across the tops here. Probably kind of hard to see from this distance, but there's 5. The kit comes with 7 screws, so you can do 5 across the top. I'm actually going to do some on the sides. You can tell there's no holes there, but I'm going to pop holes in the sides so that I can mount it a little better to the sides to get it to the fenders, just to hold it in there a little more stable. And then in the middle here you can see this square cutout. That's for your hidden tow package. It'll be hiding right behind where the license plate bolts, so that when your license plate flips up, got your tow package right there. And then these little squares here, you'll have little plastic tabs where they just push in and they lock in, and then you'll use your bolt to bolt the license plate to it. Or if you got a flip up license plate, you can mount those to this and then the license plate to the flip up brackets. And then the last thing you'll notice is here in the bottom there's a cutout for your light. The kit comes with a plastic light that will fit there, that you'll be wiring your existing lights to this, and it's an LED, so it shines out on your license plate. And there's also 2 screw holes to hold that plastic piece in. Very simple. But the first thing we need to do here is we're going to need to sand this down. Not down to bare metal, just to kind of scuff it up. You can see how shiny it is. You don't want that. You want it to have more of a matte look to it. That way you know that the texture is just right to hold a nice epoxy coat on it. So we're going to get a dual action sander, and we're going to use that with a 320 grit, not to tear it all up, just to get it a little bit rougher. That way the primer will stick better. So let's go ahead and get this rolling. So here's the panel all sanded down. Turned out pretty nice. Dual action sander does really nice because it's got 2 pivot points where both of those points rotate, and it, creates kind of a crosshatch. But obviously you can't get into every little spot with it, so you have to hand sand some of it, which no big deal. Technically you could hand sand the entire thing if you wanted to, but figured we'd use the sander for as much as we could. There's a few spots where we got down to the bare metal. Not a problem at all though, because that epoxy primer will stick to that really well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and get some mineral spirits and wipe on here and clean this down so that the epoxy primer will stick really well. You don't want any of this debris on there, and especially no oil from your fingers, because anything like that on there will cause it not to stick real well. and we want it to have perfect adhesion. So let's go ahead and clean this up. So we've just used the mineral spirits to clean up this panel. Now it's time to put down the epoxy primer. To be honest, yesterday I've actually put down a couple coats on the bottom side. That way today I could flip it over and do the top side. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a link below on the entire process of doing this priming. It's actually going to be a basics on how to use an air gun, mixing the primers, all that. So I'm just going to put a link below for that, because otherwise this video would drag on forever. So right now we're going to go ahead and just do the primer on this, just do a time lapse and keep on rolling. Alright, we got the roll pan all primered. Everything turned out real nice and clean. Went ahead and popped in the license plate tabs. They just push straight in and hold. The light, went ahead and screwed those in. The only thing I did a little differently was on the screws, I went ahead and put seam sealer on them to help seal off the threads. That way they don't start rusting on the backside. I'm real anal about rust, as you can tell, so every little precaution I can take. And you can kind of see back there the red and black wire. Super simple. Wire those to your existing license plate wires. Nothing more to say about that. Really easy stuff. So we're going to go ahead and mock this up on the bed of the truck, and then mark where the holes are going to be drilled, and go ahead and go from there. Okay, so we got it mocked up here, you know, pretty close. Over here we're going to have to do a little bit of forming there and kind of pull it out a little bit, but it's mocked up enough to where we got it marked and everything. Now when you do this, it's not that hard. Just try to pop it in there. It's going to fit tight, but try to make the curves, you know, flow nicely with the sides of the bed back here up to the top as much as you can. And then, you know, straight down through there. Same with the other side. Obviously this is the top's going to pop in a little bit more, and this will be pulled out a little bit more. That way this isn't really coming through. But I went ahead and marked all the holes on the top here, so you can kind of see where the holes are. I got that one marked. There's one there, and there's 5 across the top under here. Kind of tight in there because it's right underneath the tailgate. Originally I was going to put screws in the sides to hold it a little more solid on the bottom end, but as you can see, there's not much of a lip there on the side of the truck bed here. So I'm not going to do that for now. Later on I might figure something else out, or I might do it up here because there's a little bit more up in here. I'll figure it out once I take the roll pan back down and start drilling into it. But we got this marked off, and we're going to go ahead and drill those holes. I'm using a 5/32 drill bit. It should be big enough, and then we'll go ahead and get that drilled out and get ready to put some seam sealer on it and keep on rolling. Okay, so we got the holes all drilled out here. Originally I started using a 5/32 drill bit and tried to insert the screws in there, and it just wasn't a big enough hole. So I switched over to a 3/16, and it worked pretty good. The screws were still snug, so I recommend using, if you got this kit and this size screws that I've got, a 3/16 drill bit. And then after that I went ahead and screwed the screws in to get some, you know, some thread grooves inside the holes and everything. I recommend that. That way you're not trying to get them in the first try with the panel on there. Makes it a lot easier when you already got the threads in the holes. The other thing is, you can see I've got, well, here's the factory paint here, but you can see on the corners here, I got the black paint. I ended up going ahead and I had a little bit of rust back here, a couple holes here and there. So I got the grinder out and put on a wheel that would take the rust off, the paint off, but not take down the metal. So it cleaned it up real nice, and then did a couple coats of primer. Just spray can primer, just something quick and simple. This is going to be covered by the panel anyways, and I'm going to have it sealed off. And then I went ahead and did black paint over it. Just wanted to clean it up. Don't want rust behind this panel as far as what it mates up against to bolt it on. So make sure you got this spot cleaned up and everything. And then we're going to be using a seam sealer. So this would be basically to make sure you're not going to have moisture between the two surfaces that you're going to have bolted together. I highly recommend doing this. I've seen where a lot of people just bolt it up and go. You don't want rust coming up behind this stuff. So every precaution you can take, I recommend seam sealer on this. So usually seam sealer you would use for sealing up seams. Basically, you know what the name is. But what I'm going to use it for is along the back here. So it's going to be just flatten up against it so no moisture can get behind it. But what you want to do first is you're going to want to clean this up. That way it seals real nice, gets a good adhesion. Some mineral spirits or something. So we're going to go ahead and apply this back here, and we're going to use a plastic putty knife. In some spots we might use a metal putty knife. You can use a brush. This particular type I got, Transtar. I've heard good reviews about it. So this I'm not going to use a brush because I heard it doesn't really brush that well because it's kind of thicker. So we're going to use a plastic putty knife on most of it. And I'm also going to try to get it in the holes we drilled too, so that when we put those screws in, it'll seal those holes up nice, because we got bare metal in there. So might as well seal it up, and I know this stuff does a good job. So we're going to go ahead and get all this stuff on here and get this mounted up. So as you saw, the roll pan bolted on real nice and easy. The seam sealer went on real smooth. The body lines look really nice. Even the hidden toe package fits perfect in the square cutout. When we installed the screws, it pulled the seam sealer through the holes, sealed the threads up real nice. The only thing I don't like is I couldn't put screws through the sides of this roll pan and into the truck bed. There's just not enough of a lip on the back side here for the screws to grab onto. So for right now, we're just going to stick with the 5 screws that go across the top of the roll pan. It's on there nice and sturdy, so I'm not too worried about it. And then on down the road, we'll put a nice fresh coat of paint on there too. But it's an epoxy primer, so for right now, it'll hold up just fine. If you have any questions, please send me a comment. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you like the video, subscribe. We'll keep the videos coming. And we'll see you next time on Dog and Garage. Thank you.
Back from the dead.